doing it? I'm just reading up on artillery.
Yes, and I'm pursuing my interest in...
Hello, and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 269. It is the third day of the week, aka the Spirit Bomb workout. I am feeling pretty good. I'm very excited for this workout. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today, which is judging a book by its cover. And most of the time, depending on a few circumstances, you're probably right, honestly. But we'll get into the reasons why and all of that in a second. But first, why did I come up with this subject matter? This is actually something I had been talking about a while back now at this point, in a few episodes ago, maybe like 10 or 20 at this point. But I wanted to talk about this subject matter eventually, which was the fact that not everybody has a good radar for these types of things. But some people do have a good radar for these types of things, and we'll discuss maybe the reasons why. There are multiple reasons why I wanted to talk about this anyway, but the main reason why, personally, is just because this is such an interesting topic to me. I think, personally, we get a lot from the internet when it comes to judging people by, they have a very small window to impress us. And even in person, it's like your first impressions are something to be made. But it is interesting that we are told most of the time to never really, don't judge a book by its cover, which is understandable because I feel like generally it is a good rule, but also it is hard to get away from that first judgment depending on who you're talking to or what's happening, really. Specifically online, truly online, it's harder because you don't see the person in real life, but there are certain characteristics that you can instantaneously know whether or not the person is good or not, or whatever you want to say, whatever your judgment call is. And I'm not going to get into the entire idea of you shouldn't judge others because you're human. You're going to judge people. That's probably a whole other episode on it in itself because, yeah. But for this one, I just wanted to go over some of those things and really why it's all right if you'd end up judging people when you first see them, because I feel like a lot of people feel like you shouldn't, and realistically, you probably shouldn't, but also you're gonna do it. So you might as well fine tune it to the point where you can understand why you're getting these results and maybe a few other things like that. Because there's no point in ignoring a feeling when sometimes the feeling is correct, there are times where, I was right. My first impressions of this person is that they were an asshole, and it's like you're getting away from a level of yourself that you shouldn't be getting away from. But we'll get into details and all of that other stuff when we get to Mother Base.
All right, so started this day off with AD press, which was pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand. Judging a book by its cover, and it's probably pretty good. But basically, the main reason why I wanted to talk about this was because I have discussed this randomly in different previous episodes. And one of my key points that I've made in a lot of these episodes is that sometimes you got to trust the gut feeling. And I think that more so often than not, the gut feeling is correct for the most part. If you are in tune with your body and, a few other faculties of your mind and things like that, your gut feeling will save you from many different things in the world. I mean, there are multiple instances that you can see in history where the gut feeling has helped people out. We will talk about that in a different episode because that's a little different. But in this case, judging someone the first moment that you see them is a combination of things that kind of happen all together all at once. Sometimes your first assessment of a person is relatively accurate. It's not necessarily that far off. Sometimes we are pretty spot on when it comes to these things because we can tell when people aren't necessarily good. It's kind of like understanding that a snake is bad inherently. We just kind of evolutionarily grew up with that. So it is that something like that. So that is the reason why I want to discuss this, because I also feel like people have tried to surrender this idea of judging a book by its cover because, of course, they say don't judge a book by its cover. But I feel like this is a platitude told by those who should be judged, honestly. It's like as if they are a chameleon trying to hide themselves away from the judgment of others, when in reality, it is something to be weary of, because these are the types of people people that will hide their true colors behind some thin veil because they can, but their face and or body shape and or other faculties about them realistically will just color them into the actual snake that they really are. I think that there's a lot of physiognomy discussion when it comes to this, but I don't want to get too deep into that. I think that there is a discussion about that to be a real thing, but some people don't believe it. I kind of do. It just depends, really. See all girls with giant gums having high standards of consumption. There you go. I think that's the best way to describe it. Or they're always engaged. It's a very weird thing. But I think of it in this sense that most of the time, people that are real, the sign of real recognizes real, and the other side where fake recognizes fake is very applicable to this. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that these things are something that happen to both sides. I feel like if you understand and recognize the other type and you are the type that is them, you recognize it immediately. That is why there are certain people that hate certain people. Let's say let's just go with sports media commentators, but then they call out somebody else who's just equally as bad. And then there you go. It's like the kettle calling the pot black, that type of stuff. So it is sometimes you can see the connection between the two. A lot of it at the end of the day is a spiritual connection that you have to kind of have with your own self and whether or not your judgment is correct or not. But I feel like a lot of people are taken away from their spiritual self and making sure that they can be connected to it so then that way they can make proper judgments according to their own wills and needs for life, because not necessarily everybody is a bad person to everybody, but figuring out who they are and going to that conclusion using your own facilities is something that has gone kind of away from us, from a lot of people, because a lot of people have been able to either hide themselves very well or not flex that muscle because they have been told multiple times throughout their life they shouldn't judge those people, but in reality they probably should. But nobody really wants to be the asshole to tell them, hey, if they look like an asshole, maybe don't trust them. And it's as simple as that. I will also add, because this is probably something I should have said at the beginning, for those who believe that we shouldn't judge others for anything at all, you are vastly incorrect. And in fact, that you do it at all times, no matter what, is kind of naive of you to even think in that sense. Realistically, this is entirely in a different episode because people do judge others and we'll probably talk about it, but it is better to know what you are judging upon and actually be aware of it rather than pretending or making some weird platitude that you are above judging others in a weird, stupid, or moronic way, and probably making it so you are making your own life difficult because you refuse to do basic judgments.
Here's your new home.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercise is not filmed, none. Exercise is skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand. Judging books by their covers. Basically, the main reason why I wanted to talk about this was because I think that there are people that try to shy away from something like this in order to be, quote, a better person. And I understand why this is such a thing. Obviously, you would want to be nicer to those around you. But realistically, if it isn't in your personality, then why are you trying to force it in there? Realistically, yes, you could try to do that, but more so not, you're getting away from your true self, and you have to figure out why you aren't like that. Maybe figure out, why do you judge these people at first? Why do you have this thing? There could be a reason for it. Maybe you are, in tune with your own spiritual self, so then that way you can actually be relatively accurate on these things. Maybe you're not relatively accurate on these things. Maybe ask yourself Why am I not? Is something clouding my judgment? Maybe the things that I'm doing in my world's just not aligning with me, where I'm being falsified by others easily. Things like that. And I don't necessarily mean it all has to be bad. It could also be just good. I don't understand why people will think that, like, we all have to assume that everyone is horrible. If I judge a book by its cover, sometimes they're good. They're just good. They're like, oh, this is probably a nice person. That's it. And it's like the demonization of that all of a sudden takes the whole baby with the bathwater out. It's the baby with the bathwater problem. It's just, you're just fucking everything over, because there are people that you can look at. I mean, sure, they might be weird or they might be terrible. You never know, obviously. But there are some times where you're like, could be all right. Who knows? Who knows? But sometimes you have that weird gut feeling about things. And we'll have a whole discussion about gut feeling, because that's kind of different. It's in the similar vein, but slightly different. Because I feel like this has multitudes of layers to it, obviously. But gut feeling is its own thing. But I just wanted to make this because I feel like a lot of people just to kind of get freaked out by the idea of like, oh, we can't be too rushed to judgment on stuff. Sometimes you can be, and I think that's all right to do it on occasion. Sometimes you kind of just have a really good feeling that this person is not good, and that's fine. Or this person is good, and that's also fine. Sure, they can do things to do the opposite, obviously gain your trust, or, misplace it. Either way, they can do that. But realistically, the less you are in tune with others and yourself, the more so you are willing to do either or incorrectly. And I think that's the main issue I have with it, is that I feel like a lot of people, if they understood themselves, would be able to understand others and seeing where others are coming into their lives and whether or not it is good and or bad. That way, you can figure out things like red flags quicker, and you can understand what's going on when somebody comes into your life, or how they're treating you, or anything like that. I don't understand why we have to hold out forever and ever and ever until something happens. One time, have the canvas be a flat color, but at least have it be a full color, if that makes any sense. I just feel like a lot of people need to get that checked out, or at least, fine tune it so then they understand themselves and understand where others are coming from. And also use I wouldn't say use anecdotal evidence, but use experience from others instead of having to learn the lesson the hard way, which was a whole other discussion. But with that being said, tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. This one's a slightly random one, but one nonetheless. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please leave your comments in the comment section down below about anything that has to do with this subject matter, or if you hate what I said, please let me know. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there. Stay cool, or whatever the hell it is where you're at. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.